The disappearance of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, one of India's most influential freedom fighters, remains one of the modern history's enduring mysteries. Known for his pivotal role in India's struggle for independence and leadership of Indian National Army, Bose's fate after 1945 has been the subject of intense debate and speculation. With the pride of having a galaxy of empowered people today in the Orange City, a scintillating evening to one and all. This is Pravartan Tatte, delighted and privileged to welcome you all to the 6th edition of Orange City Literature Festival organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation, powered by Raisuni Education. The mystery of Bose's disappearance continues to evoke strong emotions in India. Many see him as a symbol of patriotic sacrifice and relentless struggle. However, the truth about his fate remains elusive, and the lack of closure has made Subhash Chandra Bose one of India's most enigmatic historical figure. So now let's decipher the mystery behind events related with Netaji's life after death in this session, Unmasking the Enigma, the untold story of Netaji's disappearance and the quest for truth, with Anuj Dhar and Chandrachur Ghose in conversation with Sutapa Basu. Today we have with us Chandrachur Ghose. He is an independent researcher, author, and commentator on history, politics, economics, and the environment. He has co-authored the renowned hardback conundrum, Subhash Bose's Life After Death. He is one of the founders of pressure group Mission Netaji to spread public awareness over official secrecy on issues related to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Anuj Dhar, our second speaker, is known for his research and activism related to Subhash Chandra Bose, especially the issue of his mysterious disappearance. Dhar's 2012 best-selling book, India's Biggest Coverup, triggered the movement for declassification of the Netaji's files and inspired hit web series Bose, Dead Alive. In 2018, Dhar wrote Your Prime Minister is Dead, which is the first ever comprehensive study of the enduring Lal Bahadur Shastri's death mystery. Today's moderator, Ms. Sutapa Basu, is a best-selling award-winning author as well as an educationist, poet, storyteller, and translator. Her books, The Curse of Nader Shah, won the Best Fiction Award by Odd Her Awards 2016, first prize winner of the Times of India's Right India campaign, a psychological thriller, Dangle nomination for Anupam Kher Award for Best Debut English Novel. She has been awarded with Excellence in Publishing by the Public Diplomacy Forum. Please pardon me for curtailing the other details of your introduction, because we will spend more time on the topic. We have time because this is the last session. We can go till 7 also. As the topic itself is so very captivating that can make all of us to delve deep into forgetting time frame, I must appreciate the guest for this workshop, for this session, for having accepted and structured this topic into a time frame which won't go beyond the program which is being conducted in the lawn. So we'll have to finish it before that. So, ladies and gentlemen, sorry. When does that program start in the lawn? 7. So we were 6 to 7. I mean, it's a feast. Yes, feast with Chandrachur and Anuj sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I hand over the session to dignitaries. Over to the moderator, Unmasking the Enigma, the untold story of Netaji's disappearance and the quest for truth.
Authors like you, Mr. Chandrachur Ghose and Mr. Anuj Dhar, about the mystery of Subhash Chandra Bose's alleged death. Now, the thing is that there's been a lot of talk, lot of discussion, and a lot of noise about this. But what we would first want to know is, what is it that led you on this quest? What was the trigger?
Okay, we'll have to answer that.
Yes, absolutely. It's a question to both of you, and we can start with Anuj.
this noise is because of us only, actually. So it's not as much, the Eastern. So as far as I'm concerned, you can make a movie about it. What really happened to how
In fact,
I was.
there are a lot of movies which have been made
But
based
they have
on your
not
books.
actually turned me into a star, because otherwise I think my own story is much more engrossing than what has been shown in the cinema halls. I was a journalist. My background is my grandfather was in British Indian Army, so I come from that kind of background. So I look like my grandfather. So I never saw him, but I used to see his pictures and his medals. They're still with me. So I was given to understand by my family elders that they were asked to go and fight the Germans in North Africa. So he got the Africa Star, that medal. You're from the forces background, so you would appreciate. The Africa Star was given to those who had gone and fought the Germans in Africa. Okay. So then they were asked to go and fight, Japanese, and now this is primarily young audience. So there's a lot of censorship. So there was nothing like TV, nothing was there in existence, only some newspapers. So when Subhash Chandra Bose left this country, they understood the threat he posed. So there was total censorship on what he was doing. So nobody knew what he was doing. Nobody had any idea about INA and whatnot. So it's complete censorship. So even the people in the forces did not know, at least at that level, junior officer level, they did not know what Netaji was doing. So it's only when my grandfather and whoever with him, they reached the Kohima sector, it's only then they realized that the people on the other side were Indians and they refused to fight. So I knew from my own family history that India's becoming free had to do more with Subhash Bose than anybody else, because the British were Subhash Bose, India's becoming free has to do more with Subhash Bose than anybody else, because the British were running this country using our own people, especially in the armed forces. And the Indian army turned against the British because of the INA, and that's why. So I had little bit of fascination, you could say. I mean, liking for Netaji, but general speaking, everybody, at least I could recall, and it should be true for everybody. All of us grow up liking, admiring some of the national greats, so we don't, harbor any ill will towards anybody. We usually, I must confess, I used to like Panditji also, and Gandhiji also in that phase of my life. And then accidentally, it was happened by fluke or accident. I was working for a newspaper, and there they thought of doing an investigation to Subhash Bose's death, because there was a commission of inquiry which is functioning in. I'm talking about 2000 or 2001. So they thought, and this was the starting of the internet age. So most of you cannot recall what it was like in those. But for the first time in history, we could, write as much as we could. Otherwise, in newspapers, you were limited to writing only 2-column story, like 400 words, 600 words, not more than that. But for the first time in the history, we could write as much we could, and we could, have as many photographs. Videos were still not possible because the bandwidth was not there. So they thought that the, Hindustan Times should have an inquiry, and, somehow I got sucked into this thing, and then I could never come out. And the turning point was that we somehow, our team came to a conclusion that the conventional story of his death, the plain cash story, was not correct. So we were summoned by Justice Mukherjee Commission to give, give evidence. Now this is rather, big thing for somebody like me coming from middle class, because normally we used to read in history books that there was a commission into, Subhash Chandra Bose's death in the old days. There was a commission to Mahatma Gandhi, murder case, and people, appeared before that commission. So it is like a bit of, ego boost, ego trips. So like, we cannot.
To everyone, it would be an ego boost.
Yeah, it is
obviously.
like, you're becoming part of history, in a footnote in history, that you should be going and, and giving evidence, whatever it was, whatever the worth. And I reached the venue. It was in Delhi's Vigyan Bhavan. So when lo and behold, you have Pranab Mukherjee there. He was witness number 48. I was witness number 50. And 51 was, I think, this Coverup Singh. So you're also not only giving evidence before a commission of such an important case, but you're sitting with those, such eminent people in the world. It began to sink in me, this issue, because just to say that he did not die, and when it began to sink in, I became a little bit distressed that a person like him who did so much for this country, what happened to him? The only story or the only talk that we used to hear back in the day was that everybody used to say that Netaji was in Siberia. He's in Siberian cell and he was bumped off there, and people openly blame Panditji and Stalin for it. I will not go. I'm just giving the background, but I'll just give this just the turning point is that the people like so I was disturbed what to do, and I in a way, just out of like I was began shooting in the dark. Suppose I met you and I come to know that you have some connection to the government, like you're working for Rob, or you have somebody in the family who's working for the RNW or the PMO or the Ministry of External, because people who hold secrets, national secrets, and IB, etc. So I, tried and I started trying and reaching out with people who were in the government or who had relatives in the government. And I began shooting in the dark. And I started hitting targets.
Yeah, so you hit some targets
And
and
I
some you
hit a
didn't.
target, a very big target, and it was
yeah.
almost like a John Le Carre movie
Right,
that they
right.
told me that's the reality.
So basically, you had a family history, and then you were called for the commission, and you were a journalist. So that
family history from the other side. I'm from the
From the other
traitors,
side.
like we're not
Right,
from the freedom
right,
fighter side.
right,
bro.
right,
The other side. Yeah.
So, Mr. Ghosh, what about you?
You keep that. I will take this. Well, it's kind of same for me also, because I also have a family history, but it's again the opposite side. Okay. So it started with my grandfather, who took part in the freedom movement. He was a young worker for Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das, went to jail in 1921 when he was just 16.
Okay.
And very soon, I mean, he was at that age and a follower of Subhash Chandra Bose, so he joined Bose and joined the Forward Bloc. Later on, he became the member of parliament from our constituency, from the Forward Bloc party. So because we have been with that political party and with the legacy of Netaji, I have born, and my first memories are like busts of Netaji all over the house, photographs garlanded, stories going around. So I have grown up in that kind of atmosphere.
Yeah, so typical Bengali
More
atmosphere,
than typical,
yeah.
because it was more concentrated. Being a political family, it was
Okay.
more concentrated.
Right.
And all kinds of people coming in, political VIPs and other people coming in and talking about it. So that stayed with me. And obviously nobody in the family believed in the plane crash theory, plane crash story given out by the government. And then I grew up, kind of never pursued it anymore. And we connected in unknown to each other around 2000, the year 2000. The belief in our family ran that Netaji went to Soviet Russia. He escaped from Southeast Asia, went to Soviet Russia, and there he was eliminated there. That's why the story ended. Now, when I started my own career, I was in Delhi in 2000, when Hindustan Times was doing the story. I mean, an interesting aside is Hindustan Times did a fabulous series. I mean, one of the best investigative series that we have ever seen in our country. And the person who was editor of Hindustan Times at that time, he wrote an article just a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. And he wrote as if he had no memory of that phase.
Oh my God.
So,
Okay.
so that's how people change. But coming back to the story, it's I read his pieces and all, talking that Netaji came back to India. I said, I was so disgusted that these people don't tire of giving out these fantastic stories and all. Being disgusted, I just put aside. I didn't follow it up anymore. But then what happened is, what the one part of the story which he did not say, the last point of his, where his own journey ends, is when he wrote his first book in 2004, Back from the Dead. I was in UK at that time. And getting books abroad from India was not that easy at that time. So I had to spend a fortune to get that book. I read it and it seemed very rational and logical to me. So we started at that time, you know, I mean, it's very difficult to imagine at this time when you are all over Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and blah, 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 hundreds of platforms. We had at that time something called Google Chats and Yahoo Chats. Group emails. That was the height of technology. Even, I mean, Facebook was far away. Then something called Orkut came in, and Orkut was a big booster for us. So some young individuals formed a group, spread all over the world. Some of us were in India, some of us were in UK, some in US, some in Australia, other European countries, with one goal, that can we bring a closure to this case? And that's when we formed in 2005 a group called Mission Netaji. So 5 of us, Anuj, me, and there are other friends in, one is in Trivandrum, Srijit Panikar, our friend Shantan, He's a media star there. I mean, political commentator. Sayantan Dasgupta, he is heading the marketing division of Outlook Business now. And there is another very young friend called Vishal Sharma. He teaches in one of the Delhi colleges. So we started this group, and the question before us at that time was, what can be done? I mean, we are helpless, powerless, some young guys with just one goal, ambition. We want to do something. But what could we do in front of the powers? So what happened at that time is, as God would have probably wished it, a new law came into force. A new law was enacted. It's called the Right to Information Act, 2005. So it struck me sitting there in UK that we can at least try to get transparency in this case. Because the main thing about Subhash Bose, first thing before you go into anything else, you have to keep in mind one aspect of it, that is 80% of information on Netaji was kept suppressed till we got the files opened. And that started happening from 2010. We had to we fought with the government. It was a long and hard battle, but we succeeded ultimately. From 2007, we started getting documents, thousands, in the thousands. And the institution which supported us, helped us in this, is the Central Information Commission, the nodal agency for the Right to Information Act. And we got these files, but over 1,000 files.
I'm tempted to add that not only did we fight here, we've also fought abroad. So, for example, the government of India, when this Mukherjee Commission was functioning, they refused to, and they were asked, why don't you get information out from the American side? So they asked, so the American embassy informed government of India, they advised that you hire an Indian student in America and then get this thing done. And then for the classified information in America, you have to approach a different channel. So the government of India, could not find a single researcher, even though everybody has got a child sitting in that country. So they could not get one Indian student to go and do research in American archives. And second thing, regarding the classified information, they wrote in the government records that it is very difficult, and it's true, it's a very tardy and difficult process to get classified information out of America, because the American RTI Act, which is the American Freedom of Information Act, is very difficult, and problem with it that you have to tell which document you want. Yeah. So if the file is secret, how do I know the file is, which document I want, because the file is secret. So they refused point blank, we cannot do the American FOIA, we cannot get American declassified information out, classified information out, because we do not know. Now, both of us are sitting in Delhi, and we were able to locate classified CIA records in America, and we filed the FOIA, and we were able to get the information out from the American side. So we keep joking about it, that we can get information out of the CIA, but these people sitting in Delhi are like the heart.
Not only CIA. Not only CIA. We got information out of the British Foreign Ministry also. Okay. So the classified information, they declassified on our asking. So I hope you understand classified files and declassified files. Classified files are just take it as secret files. Okay, they're not open for public, and even in the government, very few people can access them. So, what is the first indicator that something is wrong in this case from the government side? Whenever we asked for information, the government's standard reply was, if we give you information, if we make information public on Netaji on this aspect, it will spoil our relation with foreign countries and will create internal disturbance, law and order situation, to the extent of rioting. So that was the government's standard response. The funniest thing is, when I asked for a draft history of the Indian National Army in 2010, the Defense Ministry refused. But I won the case in the Central Information Commission, and they asked the ministry to give me the copy of the draft, which was written in the 1950s, late 1950s, that old. But it is still in the draft stage. The government hasn't published it. So what the government did, they went to the Delhi High Court and filed a case. Filed a case when you are appealing against an order, you file a case against the order issuing authority, right? I mean, CIC has passed an order. You don't agree with it. You don't want to follow it. So you go to the court against the CIC. But the government cannot go against the CIC to the court. So they filed a case against me for asking for that information. That is Subhash Chandra Bose in 2010-11. So those who think that this is history, you have to rethink. This is not history we're talking about. That case is still ongoing. That case has not been withdrawn. So this is 2024 we are sitting in. I still have a case against me in Delhi High Court.
But I just want to go back a little in history. I know you're talking
Just
about
to
history.
add to him, I had a very good relation with the postman in my part of the world.
Okay.
So when they start delivering, the papers coming from the CIA Washington, he refused, to talk to me afterwards. He became suspicious who this person is. I don't know.
But I'll go back in history a little. So in August 1945, when the news of Subhash's death in the crash came, nobody believed it. I mean, starting out with Mahatma Gandhi or Gandhiji and Nehru, and even the common man on the street, they simply said that he cannot have died in that crash, right? And there was an investigation which went on for nearly a year. And that investigation was not only led by Indians, but also led by foreign reporters and so on. And nothing conclusive came out of it. Yet, just 6 months later, the government, in fact, Gandhi and Nehru declared it publicly that Subhash is no more, and we have got evidence that he died in the crash. But from what was the source of that evidence is not there. This is there in the opening chapters of your book, Conundrum. So what do you think led to this turnaround by the government?
See, it's turnaround. You have to go back to the history a little bit more. What Subhash Bose meant for the Gandhian leadership in India. Subhash Bose is the only politician in India who challenged Gandhi directly in an electoral contest and defeated him. You know what that means. Gandhi himself did not contest the presidential contest of the presidential post of the Indian National Congress. He set up his own candidate who represented Gandhi. Defeating him was equivalent to defeating Gandhi. So a man who can defeat Gandhi electorally in the democratic contest for the president of the Congress, you know what he means. So he was a problem both to the Gandhian High Command in terms of politics, in terms of philosophy, in terms of ideology, what he wanted to do in free India, as much as he was a problem with the British Raj. So nobody in the Gandhian High Command who wanted power to be transferred to their hand, they wanted him back. They did not. So not believing it was the first reaction, because it has happened number of times when either it has been, in the 1940s, it had been by mistake or mischievously announced by the British government or by other governments that Subhash Bose has died in a plane crash. So it has happened a number of times. So obviously the first reaction of many people was that this can't happen. This must be another hoax. He has deliberately done this to get away from the scene. And this was the reaction of the British government, the Viceroy himself. He also wrote in his journal that if I were in his shoes, I would have done the same thing, that spread the story of my death and get away from that place to do the next, to take the next steps. So that is understood. And Gandhi, Nehru first did not believe, but very soon turned around. Gandhiji did not believe, publicly turned around. This is very important to remember,
Yes,
that he publicly
announced.
turned around.
Yes.
And other, when the Congress met in 1945 September, they did not adopt a condolence resolution, because they were not sure, they did not believe, so Congress did not. In fact, 1945, when the elections happened for the Congress president's post, there were 4 candidates, and one of the 4 candidates was Subhash Chandra Bose, although he was not present there. But his name could not be considered because he was not a primary member. He had been expelled from Congress while he was in India. So he could not be considered for that post. So that is the story. But we will come to the thing, why publicly and why privately. The story that became quickly very popular, the family believed that story. Common people believed. There was no reason not to believe, because it came from the Japanese government and all. So a lot of people believed. The disbelief started building up over the next few years. It did not happen instantly.
That Pattabi's defeat is my defeat, is what Gandhiji said.
Yes.
Yes.
He was contested.
Pattabi Sitaramaiah was Gandhi's candidate. Gandhi was not the candidate. So so that's what I said. He
Sir,
electorally
we have
defeated him.
time for question and answers.
Yeah.
We can have those.
So,
One
the
more
thing,
thing.
The thing is that
just
Yeah.
pardon me again. I request audience to keep their mobiles on silent, because the session is going on very smoothly. Please don't disturb it with your mobile's voice.
एक second, I'll just complete finish.
The next question is to you.
So what happened is that people generally kind of were in two minds whether to believe or not to believe. It has come from the Japanese government. The leaders are saying that we don't know. This is till the end of 1945. Things change in 1946. Suddenly, what are the triggers? The political pressure is there. The British is coming in. The cabinet mission is coming in. The British are preparing because of the impact of the INA. The British are preparing to leave. Now, at that time, Gandhiji is suddenly taking a U-turn and saying that now I am convinced after talking to Bose's aide, Netaji's aide, Habibur Rahman, that he died in the plane crash. But months after talking to Habibur Rahman and making that public announcement, we see Gandhi's secretary, we will come to it later, we'll tell you the details, writing confidential letter to the top journalists in the US that if Subhas comes back to India from Russia at the head of a Russian army, whatever happened will happen. The question is, for a man who has died, why would you even consider such a scenario?
Yes, yes. So, Mr. Dhar, I'll just...
क्वेश्चन में नहीं है अगर ये लेटर सावरकर ने लिखा होता तो ये कांग्रेस वाले क्या हालत करते उसकी तो ये तो वो है अच्छा I want to just clarify one thing no people believed completely when the news of Subhash Bose's death came people had no other way to know they started to cry Pandit ji was in Abbottabad he cried Gandhi ji was in Pune
He said, I don't believe.
But people,
Later
in a
on,
sense,
yeah,
believe.
he
But
said-
what happened? The turning point happened when it was an American journalist who made public statement. No, I have seen this man arrive to death.
Yes.
Oh, otherwise, his brother also believed that he died. So people's disbelief, started after some time. And the factor was that the British did not believe, and Americans they had the suspicions, and especially an American journalist in a very big press conference in front of Panditji, he challenged him. He said, "This man did not die. I have seen him after his death in Saigon area." And he's a war criminal, he has done something wrong here, like this. So people over a period of time, and then they said, no, we don't believe. And eventually they said, we have belief. So it's like a flip-flop of sort, actually.
So, Mr. Dhar, when the Mukherjee Commission files were declassified with a lot of effort by you all, the Mamta government also declassified some files. And in those files, correspondence between the members of the Bose family and acquaintances emerged. And in those files, those correspondence, it was clearly given that they did not believe that Subhash Chandra died in the plane crash. In fact, there was one investigative report where Emily is mentioned as the alleged wife of Subhash Chandra Bose and not widow. And later, after that, his nephews and the members of his family were under government surveillance, right from independence till 1970s. So what was the reason to spy on the Bose family?
The family has, by family, I mean these grandnephews. This is such a
Yes,
fantastic history that if you were to make a TV series on them, it would beat all the Ekta Kapoor series, actually. So much of drama in it. The kind of nautankis they have done in recent times, I've known them personally for long. First of all, declassification means us only. It does not involve anybody else.
Right.
It's all done because of us. It is we who ran after government and got things declassified. Our book, the very first chapter, we have given the documents. For example,
Yes.
the PMO is talking about, they have taken with my name that he has written, filed this application. So we're going to declassify. So family was nowhere in the picture. Half of them were running a Jyoti Basu fan club in Calcutta when I met them first.
No, I'm talking about the correspondence, the letters
I'm
which
coming.
came.
I'm coming. But the background is one has to distinguish the family members were. I'm talking about when you think of Netaji's family, just keep in one thing in mind. What does family mean? Family mean his first brothers and sisters, siblings. Not one believed in the plane crash theory all their lives. The youngest brother was here in Nagpur. And then he moved to Bombay, but he was in Nagpur, also based here. And then all his nephew and nieces, I think almost all died. I think Roma died few weeks back. None of the nieces and and nephews of Netaji believe that he died in a plane crash, except for one who had joined the Congress party. So you join a political party, your stand changes. So leaving aside Shishir Kumar Bose, nobody believed. Then the people that we talk of, and these people, and of course Netaji's wife, she never believed until her end. Daughter has a different kind of she's like a flip-flop sort of thing. But Otherwise, nobody in the family, no brother, no sister, nobody believed. And they had good reason because Netaji's closest brother had an investigation done in different countries. So they were not, normal people.
Yeah.
Sharad Bose in particular was somebody well connected with, and he was part of the government also, and he knew what he was talking
But
about.
why was the spying? What did the guy
Anyhow,
in the
well,
government?
just to give background, and the thing is that currently the family we're talking about, these are the grand nephew and nieces.
Yes,
So
yes.
most of them have no clue about Netaji. They also know him as an ancestor. So what happened that, Chandrachur and I were after government, they should declassify file and all that. So because of our efforts, the previous government of Manmohan Singh, they released about 10 to 15,000 pages. They were declassified and sent to National Archives quietly. So what happens, this has happened even in other countries when you take such a huge, such a big number of papers are released. Sometimes by mistake, you give out something which you should not have done. So even this kind of mistake is done by others also, especially Americans have also done the same mistake. You have released a document which you realize in hindsight was not a good decision. So in this case, what happened that they released about 10, 15,000 pages. So I was in Delhi, I went to National Archives, he was not around. And I went and I began seeing these papers. This was in 2014 end. And I came across, there were files on snooping on Subhash Bose's family members. And I called him and told him, look, this is Watergate Scandal Part 2. So this is this turning point which turned everything around because Watergate, as you know, is a very infamous scandal in the history of political science all over the world. So it is there we found out that there were so many files were there. And this story was, we gave the story to India Today. And India Today ran a cover story and the hell broke loose. Because of this reason, the Mamata Banerjee released the files. It's not because of that they were very happy to do so earlier. No, they were not bothered earlier.
They did not do it on the files. The existence of 64 files were pointed out by us. Anuj had made applications under RTI to the West Bengal government. Then they said that we don't have such files. Those files don't exist. After this media hype started and there was a media war actually on all primetime channels, primetime shows in all TV channels. All of a sudden, after a few days, the West Bengal government issues a statement. What do they say? They say, oh, you know what happened? One of our officers walked into an empty room and he saw 64 files lying on the ground. Really? I mean, files were just lying around and nobody knew and nobody entered that room all these years that you kept denying. So that's how the West Bengal government did it. And once the West Bengal government announced that we are going to declassify, the central government was in pressure. So that's how it works. Political competitiveness is very important for resolving this issue.
But why the spying?
Even the reason was given, forget me, even those members of the family who are now renting against us, they themselves made public statements. Forget about us.
So is it that
The
they
family
were...
members themselves agree. I mean, it was everybody. I mean, we are talking the same thing. We have not changed our stand. So we are where we were in 2000. I am where I was in 2001. Okay, I'm still. He's where he was in 2004. So the family has changed. By family, I mean this the younger lot, the grand nephew level. I'm not talking about the nephew, recent. So these people, they all and the spokesperson of the BJP, everybody said. See, they were not spying on the family members. For example, somebody like Dr. Sisir Kumar Bose is of no consequence to the RNW.
Exactly.
To Mr. Kao, who later on became the first founder chief of RNW. RN Kao have multiple things to do in life. He was not bothered about getting a random report about a person who's a local Congress leader or whatever. Why is he bothered about that? So they were not concerned about Netaji. So they were spying. First of all, the spying was happening all over the country. Okay. Somebody wanted to write a book on Gujarati Subhash Bose, he was spied upon. There was a child's class 9 child, he wanted to do something about Subhash Bose, he was spied upon. So they were doing in Bombay, they were doing in, of course, in Chennai. So it was happening all over the country. So it was very obvious to everybody. So they were not spying these small fries. They were essentially spying on Subhash Chandra Bose. And they thought that if Netaji is probably somewhere alive here and there, and he would be in touch with either people who were in INA or who was a family member or somebody close. So they were huge network that probably they were.
Basically, they wanted to find out.
Basically spying on Subhash Chandra Bose. And it is in this context they intercepted the correspondence between Netaji's wife and the family members. So imagine So, I mean, imagine for the sake of the argument, Kasturba Gandhi were alive in 1950s. And imagine this kind of story were to come out, that Kasturba Gandhi writing letters to her nephew and nieces in Gujarat, and they're all intercepted and read by the intelligence department. I mean, I cannot imagine, how would the people of Bengal will react today? I mean, hell will break loose in Calcutta that how can you do this thing to, Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi. So this was, they were doing it. So even Amelia's correspondence with her, nephew and nieces were intercepted, and there they made a very clear note that the addressee is evidently the alleged wife of Subhash Chandra Bose. So obviously they knew the difference between a wife and a widow.
Exactly.
So it was very clear, obvious from that thing. And we wanted to have one, because at that time we and these members of the family were on the same platform. And we wanted to have an inquiry. There should be an inquiry on this case. Let it be a judicial inquiry, but we must find out why this inquiry is happening. But the family dropped the demand. So I still want a proper inquiry and accountability. We even filed an RTI application with the Intelligence Bureau, asking them to explain why were you doing this thing. So they answered, we cannot answer under RTI. We are exempted under.
So at the beginning and
So
also through this.
we still want this thing to be settled on, but the family backed down, and because of this, the issue fell in.
Right. But what has happened recently is that despite all this, the letters that came out from the family members, even his grandnephew Surya, when Modi went in 2015, I think, to Germany, he also spoke to him and said, I don't believe that Subhash Chandra has died. But recently, there has been a turning around of the family also. They now are towing the government line of the crash theory. Why is that so?
So let me tell you the story of how we got connected with the family at this time for this campaign. So I was in UK in 2006, and one of the family members was also in the UK. That person, I will not take names, that person used to work for the Commonwealth. Now, Commonwealth, why am I mentioning this? I am mentioning this because their grandfather, Sarat Chandra Bose, was radically against India being in the Commonwealth. So the grandchildren have no problem in working for the same organization. So they got in touch with us. We started talking and working together, building a media strategy, political strategy, and everything. So as things went on, because the letters, the communication that was intercepted was of the family came to the limelight. Naturally so. The family had to comment. But frankly speaking, in our country, the media and the politicians, we are all very dynastic in our DNA. We believe that a footballer's son will be footballer, a cricketer's son will be cricketer, and a great man's son, grandson, grandnephew, great-grandson will also be great. So that's how we work. So anything regarding Netaji, a journalist will hold the mic, hold the boom and run to the Netaji's, some obscure family member, as if that person is the ultimate authority on Netaji. They don't think. That's how it happens. And same happened with BJP also, when they started giving a lot of exposure to the Netaji's family members. And they got the limelight, which is okay. It helped our case to a great extent. But what happened is the people started getting only their side of the view, and not the entire picture. And obviously they have their own biases, own stories, distortions and everything, just like a political party. They have that problem also. So once these things started moving and files were declassified, actually declassified by the Modi government, then also they were with us on the same page, more or less on the same page. But what happened after that is fascinating. When we went through all these declassified files, we started thinking that we have collected enough information. Now we should put together. We have already, Anuj had written his second book, India's Biggest Cover-Up, where we had shown that the plane crash did not happen and there was no question of death. Based on the pre-declassification documents, we had access to a lot of secret documents which were still secret, and we could be thrown into jail by violating the Official Secrets Act. We took that risk. Nobody bothered anyway. But after that, when the files were declassified, this first set in 2010, then in 2015, 16, 17, 18, we realized that we have to tell the story of if Netaji did not die in the plane crash, what happened to him? We had enough information by 2017, 16, 17. Before that also, but now with more information with the declassified files, what we had been able to take out, we had a very clear picture. So we wrote a book called Conundrum. Conundrum, Subhash Bose's Death After Life. And that book created ripples. One of Bengal's top movie makers immediately grabbed it up, and the book was still not out, but he had some idea. He had Srijit had attended one of Anuj's lectures in IIT Kharagpur, so he picked up the idea and he announced that he will make a movie. The moment he announced that he is going to make a movie and going to call it Gumnami, the family thought, oh my God, now this is going to a different direction. It hurts a lot of people. The truth, nobody wants, get it clear, nobody wants the complete truth except the people sitting in front of you today. There, people have problems. So immediately they started going back to the plane crash theory. That when the files were declassified, these family people were saying that we can't study declassified files, so many files, hundreds of files, thousands of pages. How can we study? Please set up a commission to study. Set up a committee to study the files and tell us what it contains. The moment Srijit Mukherjee announced the Gumnami movie and our Conundrum came out, within a few weeks, they said, we have studied all the files, and they conclusively proved that Netaji died in the plane crash. I said, that's very good. You are a very fast reader. And you grasp facts very well from official files. But that's not what actually happened. But to cut the long story short, we realized that first we have to completely demolish the plane crash theory from public mind.
So is that what is different about Conundrum? Because you have already written so many books.
From the new book, The Bose Deception. The Bose Deception is written completely based on the declassified files with new information which we did not have access to when we did our previous work. So Bose Deception is a completely new approach, fresh insights, new anecdotes, new kind of facts that have emerged. And we have utilized everything put together, thought of the layperson who should be reading and should be interested, and probably had to stop earlier because the case is very complex. So many layers, so many characters, 70, 80 years we're talking about. People tend to lose patience if you don't tell them the story properly. So it's very important to tell the story properly, package the story properly. That's what we have done in Bose Deception.
So your latest book is Bose Deception.
The Bose Deception, yes.
Okay. Now,
And publishers, it's published by Penguin.
No, you have to tell there are a lot of young people. You should know that this issue nobody was willing to touch even with a barge pull. Okay, it's a controversial topic. And you have a book in which you're slamming the Prime Minister or former Prime Ministers and so on and so forth. This is not a small time issue. People talk so many things. It's a big scandal involving some MP, MLA. Here you have a number of Rashtrapatis and Pradhan Mantris who are taken in lapeta. So nobody will publish a book like this. So what happened anytime and every time people in past also tried writing about Netaji's death case, no top level publisher will even touch with even the barge pull. So Penguin Random House is world's #1 publishing house. So today now we have reached that level after having tried so much that our book is now published by Penguin and they have gone through their own legal all the checks and balances. So this is the importance. It's a big thing. Had it happened like 20 years ago, things probably would have been different today.
So there's been a lot of hype in media in 2015, 16 and so on.
Because of us.
Because of you. I totally agree and because of the books that you've written. But do you think
Not
today...
just books, we were also doing a lot of things back behind the screen. Which nobody got to.
So there's so many young people here today. So I would like to know from you that do you think today people in general and Indians in particular are still interested in finding out what really happened to Subhash Chandra Bose
I
in
was
1945.
anyway going to say this thing, what you see.
And also, why were the spying happening and why were the files not declassified? Are people really interested?
No, this is a mosaic of actually what happens everywhere. Most of our lectures and talks are attended by young people, students.
Okay.
The Buddhas don't come.
Oh.
They don't come.
So this is different.
No interest.
We have a lot of senior citizens
They don't
here.
have any interest. They don't have any interest. I'm leaving aside some exceptions. I'm very happy to tell you that mostly the younger people the young people, and especially in the IITs, they come, they show interest. India, abroad, but the people who are older who can probably relate better. For whatever reason, I don't know what has been done to their brains, because they watch all kind of nonsense movies and they've been fed with so much of crap over the years. They don't take interest. So I don't know, misfortune or good. You see, younger people, and what you see here is everywhere. Is the younger people who come, they will organize lectures. People who are well-to-do in their life, they don't have money to organize lectures. But the younger people will pool in money and they'll organize lectures. I was there last week. We in IIT.
Most of our lectures happen in
IIMs and
IITs and similar organizations.
And the younger people, they
That's
organize.
really a pleasure to know and very satisfying.
And those
that
who are
people
well settled in their life, they had done everything, so they are now waiting for the birth. So they have no money to organize these kind of lectures. So they are always. So our problem is this, that, and especially what has been God set for us is the YouTube and all these. The podcast has changed the dimension so much so that. Because the way TV channels function, they have debates and you have got 5 people fighting each other, nothing gets across. But when you sit with a podcaster, you have plenty of time, 2 hours, 3 hours. And there's so much of visibility that no matter where you go, people now recognize you. And as I said, younger people do it. And sometimes I feel ashamed because they're very young. The class 8, 9 child, talk to you. And I remember we did on live session. There was this young boy, he was hardly in class 6, and he was talking like you. He had all the data in his mind, this theory and that theory, and why were they spying and so on and so forth. Such a young child. But this is what we're witnessing everywhere. The younger people are interested.
That's really very enlightening, and I'm so happy that this is happening. Now the forum is open for any questions. So, yes, sir.
Good evening, I'm from Nagpur. No, I don't.
Because people at the back.
Can you hear me without the mic? I'm Dr. Chatterjee from Nagpur. Just 1 or 2 simple questions. Over the years, government has appointed, I think, 3 commissions.
No question in this case is going to be simple. It's a utterly complex matter.
Okay.
So we can barely
accept.
touch the basics. So no question is going to be simple in this case.
Simple, thank you.
The whole case is very complex.
Over the years, Government of India has appointed, I think, 3 commissions and committees.
They did not appoint, they were forced to appoint.
Forced to appoint. Shahnawaz, Mukherjee and Khosla. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, I find that there is there is no news about this Netaji's episode anymore from the government side. TV, magazines, newspapers, nowhere is it. Has the government lost interest in this whole episode? This is the first question. Second question is, we have gathered that there are a lot of files of Netaji still classified. Why? After 75 years of independence, are we still following the British orders to classify them still? Why? Why are we following these British orders?
Okay.
I understand, maybe I'm wrong, you may correct me, that it was on the instructions of Mr. Nehru who had told the British to classify these files of Netaji. I may be wrong, you can correct me. Now that Mr. Nehru is gone, India is governed by a non-Congress government. Why is this government also reluctant to open up all those files? Second question. Third.
Let us answer a couple of them. Otherwise, we will get lost in the questions. I have already forgotten his first question. What was your first question?
Committee. How many commission committee?
No.
Has the government...
Oh, have the government forgotten? Okay. Yes. Has the government forgotten? Okay. Let me give you with an example. When Subhash Chandra Bose went outside of India, when he escaped from imprisonment in 1941 and went to Europe, Germany, Italy, and all those areas, and then went to Japan, set up 2 governments in 2 continents, 2 armies in 2 continents, and fought against the British. When he reached Imphal, Kohima, people in India did not know about Subhash Bose because the government did not talk. Why did the government not talk? Because they did not want the highlight on Subhash Bose. They knew that the moment people come to know about him, there will be a different set of reactions. So it's not because the government has forgotten about Subhash Bose, it is because they don't want him to come to the limelight. Okay, I'll tell you. So the biography which I wrote 2 years ago, it was published by Penguin in 2022, Bose, the untold story of an inconvenient nationalist. I use the word very deliberately. Subhash Bose was an inconvenient nationalist. Inconvenient to whom? Inconvenient definitely to the British Raj, inconvenient to the Gandhian leadership, inconvenient to all the communal organizations. Communal, I'm not saying in a pejorative, in a derogatory sense. I'm saying organizations who represent communities. To them, so Subhash Bose is a figure who stood for the country, not for not for any party, not for any community, not for any special interest. That is, on one hand, a good thing, but that is also a terrible thing because you lose your constituency. You don't have a constituency. You can't publicly say anything critical about Baba Saheb Ambedkar today because he has a constituency. People will come and beat you up. You cannot say anything against a lot of I'm not taking names, a lot of historical figures because people will object to such an extent, but you say anything derogatory about Subhash Bose, there will be murmurs here and there, but nobody is going to attack you in that sense.
There were derogatory articles published in Calcutta in the leading newspapers, recent times. Forget about statements here and there.
So that is what an inconvenient nationalist, what happens to an inconvenient nationalist. We, in independent India, for the last 8 decades, we have been fed one particular narrative, one story. How did India become free? Because of Gandhiji's non-violence, right? The moment you let the highlight come onto Subhash Bose and tell the true story that it was because of his activities that the British had to run away. Now, historians, professional historians will argue, they will tell you that, but the Britishers were to leave anyway, they had announced that they will go. So what's new? What did Subhash Bose do? What they will not tell you is, the Britishers announced that they will leave India way back in 1919. They said that we will leave India, we'll leave the power in your hands and we will go away. The only thing that they did not tell you is when. So it could have been any time, any year, any period. What Subhash Bose made possible was unthinkable to the Congress leaders, the top Gandhian leadership, even at the end of the Second World War. At the end of 1945, the Congress leaders were desperate, frustrated. We have quoted in our books, Sardar Patel lamenting publicly that the Britishers had promised that they will go, but they're not going. They're not even showing any signs of transferring power. Things rapidly changed because of the INA trials and the repercussion. The mutiny in the Royal Indian Navy, mutiny in the Royal Indian Air Force, mutiny, strikes in the postal service, strikes in the railway service, strikes by students' unions. The country was a volcano at that time. And all this happened because of Subhash Bose and INA. That's when Attlee sent the cabinet mission to decide on the date. Mountbatten came after that and he saw the situation. He said the date was fixed at 1948. They had to bring it forward to 1947. Gandhiji does not feature in this scheme of things anywhere. Gandhiji has done a lot of great things, good things. I am not judging him here. But as far as transfer of power and the British Raj leaving India, that happened because of Subhash Bose, not because of them. So this narrative that has been built, which has been fed by politicians and which has in turn fed a lot of next generation politicians and bureaucrats, even armed forces and every type of bureaucrats that you can think of, government service, that will tumble in such a bad manner. It will hit out, it will take into its vortex a lot of people, big people, medium level people. Nobody wants to take that risk without a proper risk assessment, that what can we do to stop that kind of chaotic situation. So Subhash Bose does not have a constituency. He's not getting you votes. Let the sleeping dogs lie. Why invite trouble? That is what. And that's what we are trying to change. That have the decency to show the proper respect to the man who got your freedom. So at least the Modi government has come, after it came to power, it has started bringing him back to the center. So we have his statue in the Kartavya Path. We have the Andaman Islands renamed. Modi, as a prime minister, went and unfurled the national flag at the Red Fort on the raising day of the Azad Hind government. So things have been happening, but on the periphery. I hope and we hope that we will be able to change this. But for that, what we are trying to do is to raise the public opinion. Without the pressure of public opinion, it's not going to happen. So that's the answer to your first question. Second question,
No, but I would add to it because you ask about what the government is doing right now. Well, I can tell you that I have been told in various programs that I go to that the intelligence people come and they listen even today. Number one, so they are very sensitive. They don't show. They know what's happening in the country, who's doing what and who's saying what. Everybody, in fact, in the intelligence bureau, they keep an eye on who's posting what on Twitter and who's posting what on Facebook. So they are not sitting quietly. So government is aware, but they don't talk about it because, as he said, the biggest problem, and this line was, of course, started with the British, but even Panditji's time, if they get into a fight with us on this issue of Netaji, they will lose. So Chanakya said, never go into a battle, war you cannot win. So better to keep, let the sleeping dogs lie and don't get into any argument with these guys because they are truthful, number one. The second thing about, each time, and we have demonstrated in our, especially the latest book, each time this country has had a, non-Congress governments, things have moved. For example, the first time, the Morarji Bhai, and Morarji Bhai was actually in part of the Gandhian clique. But when he came to power, he actually overturned the inquiries, what Shah Nawaz and Khostai found out. So the big change. Then, for the first time, we have been demanding as a very big controversial. In fact, there should be discussion only on one topic. This is such a, lengthy and myriad topic that we should approach the Russian government. If Netaji was in Russia, you have to talk to the government. I don't want to go and talk to somebody in Jadavpur University. I don't want a professor to give me his Gyan free fund. I want to go and talk to the Russian ambassador. I want to go to talk to Russian people. Whether Netaji was with them or not, and please show me the KGB files. So we never bothered. Panditji was himself, as people have reported, he was never bothered. We never try to reach out to Russians as long as the one family was in power. It's only when VP Singh came to power, for the first time we approached the Russians on this issue. So the first diplomatic move was made in. So it's not that there are governments which are non-Congress, they have been making some, efforts. And I can assure you one thing, had Modi ji was not the prime minister, we would not be sitting here today. Yeah. If some other guy who has won last election today, if they come to power, they won't even allow, the ecosystem won't even allow these kind of programs to happen. We have lived through that period. So at least we can talk freely and openly, and I must give it to the credit to the BJP. I criticize them on their faces, they don't mind. I think not many parties, especially in Calcutta, they will not allow you to. You criticize them on their faces, then you'll be taught a lesson you'll never forget your life. So they at least allow you to speak openly. When I've come to the city in Nagpur so many times. So likewise, and then there are other implications, and like he said, and the one thing I must add to the whole thing, there's a fight between the dominant narrative of India, which is Gandhi brand. Now, the good thing about the Gandhi brand is that when you see a movie called the Gandhi Attenborough movie, it was funded by Government of India, the Government of India funded film. It was a propaganda film, not a single scene on Subhash Bose. So this movie gives you basically two takeaways when you see that movie. Even today you can go and check on YouTube. A, that Gandhiji was a very great man. We don't dispute that. I mean, no, Gandhiji's greatness is not a dispute. But they show him as a very great man. And the second thing, the British were very nice people actually. They just, asked them to leave, they just left. So this whole idea of the whole Gandhian narrative, "Dedi hame ajadi bina, khadak bina dhal," which basically came from Bengal, this idea. This idea was, it shows the white man in good light. So Gandhiji, is acceptable to the British because, he gave them a, honorable exit from this country. It just didn't happen like it happened in, Afghanistan or Saigon, some other countries. So once it becomes, known in UK, you can have his statues in different parts of the UK. Across Atlantic in America, you have, Gandhi's statues everywhere. So this narrative is sellable in Western countries. So what is sellable in the Western countries will sell like anything in Delhi and Bombay. Because all the sahibs sitting in the North Block and South Block, what is the aim of life? My child should go to America. My child should go to UK. My child should go to Vilayat. Everybody has got a family settled there. So whatever will sell in those countries will sell in this country. You cannot go and brand Shivaji Maharaj in America. You cannot go and brand Savarkar in America. You can't have his statues because nobody knows Savarkar in those countries. This is the dominant brand. So yesterday, I think they were putting out pictures that Modi ji is going everywhere and putting out, statues of everywhere Gandhi. Because it's a sellable brand. And the importance of this brand shows the white man in good light. So it is sellable in those white countries, and because it is sellable in the white countries, people here are very gung-ho about it. And so much of money has been poured into this thing. I mean, I keep telling people that we have ruined our life chasing this sort of a thing. Had we spent 5 years in, talking about Bapu and Chacha Nehru, you would can't imagine what life would have done to me. I would be sitting somewhere probably in America today. Because the doors open for you. When all kind of support, the ecosystem will come backing you. You get a lot of money here and there, so on and so forth. So it's much easier because there's a lot. And most people, they should be like that. So you should, look after yourself first rather than chasing an idea for the country. So we have suffered because of that. So everybody has to gain by talking about that brand because that is a sellable brand. Otherwise, you want to connect personally. I mean, we are sitting in Nagpur. I mean, you can connect with the Netaji story, but in terms of Maharashtra, I think these children would not be aware who was the senior most officer of the INA. We keep talking about INA. J.K. Bhosle, Shivaji Maharaj's descendant. He was from this state. Even this P.N. Oak, who floated the theories about Tejo Mahal, Taj Mahal, very famous among the all the right wingers. He was also in INA. So there were so many people. So Netaji has touched, and INA has touched all the people everywhere.
Forward Bloc had its main base in Nagpur. In the initial days.
Can we know what is the latest status about the DNA analysis of Netaji's ashes?
The latest book.
Yeah,
The
if you
latest
read
book
that, yeah.
tells you that Netaji's family secretly had a DNA test done in America. And we're quoting the government records, which they have not made public. Please go and ask them. We are quoting from the government records. They had a secret test done in America in Harvard University.
I would request you to pick up the books that are there, and I think they will give you all the answers.
This book, that's what I said, that it contains a lot of new facts. You wouldn't have known earlier that part of those so-called ashes were smuggled into India with the active help of the government of India, the UPA government, which is, we don't know what happened to it, but how can a government allow that to happen?
There's one last question. It can't be more because it's already 7.
Already
and I was
7.
given time till 7. Okay.
Nothing is simple in this case. I think
You said so, all right. And the risk of being simple. What does it do, with the kind of work that you have produced? So, what does it do to history books that I know to history books, or to the rewriting of history, which is taught in school and colleges?
No, rewriting of history is done by the government.
No, I'll tell you what. I mean, this has been asked again, but let me tell you what. The children are coming to us, so we don't care what they teach.
Yeah, don't
so
depend
they come
on
and
the
realize,
textbooks.
and all the young people, they run shows on. I remember I did this podcast with Ranveer Ilavadi. He's very famous he's in Bombay. So after it was aired, 1 week afterwards, I was in Manhattan in New York, and I was there. There was a session organized by some Gujarati and Maharashtrian students there. Bengalis don't come, sir. So they organized, and in that session, and then these boys and girls are from the New York State University. Imagine, you're living in New York City, the center of the world, all these big skyscrapers, the most happening city in the world. And these two, couple, they run a renowned restaurant. So they organized a session for me there. So, and these students were from the New York State, and they were also aware. 7 days back, we saw you on that particular, So this is the power of podcasting,
Exactly.
which mostly seen by younger people. Say they know you. You go wherever we go. Say we have seen you on that program. So rest assured that we don't care about what teachers tell them in school and colleges. Children are thanks. God bless America for creating mobile phone and this. Children come and they look into this thing and they come to us.
We have had examples in our own live sessions where we have seen students of class 6, 7 coming onto our live sessions, and actually they brag about it that school में तो ये पढ़ाता है, but मैंने तो exam paper पे ये लिखा है. So he's proud of getting a 0 mark on that particular question. So things will change in that way. See, textbooks are written by the government, sponsored by the government. They will have to toe the government line. So unless and until the government changes its stance, the textbooks are not going to change. Rewriting history is not the kind of thing that we really appreciate. It's not rewriting. It's writing the correct history. We are not, rewriting has a very nefarious vibe to it. You are changing, modifying, and kind of distorting history. We're not. We are actually telling you the facts, what really happened. So we are removing the distortion. That way, things are changing at the grassroots level. People are becoming aware. So we work through the people. We don't care what the government is saying. But the government must change at some point when enough number of people express their opinion. Government reflects the opinion of the people. That's all.
So I think on that point, we'll have to conclude the discussion. I know it's very interesting. So why don't you pick up the book and you can talk to Mr. Dhar and Mr. Ghosh later on with the book, okay? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Post deception.
Bose Deception and Conundrum also. Conundrum.
Yes, but
Bose Deception.
post deception.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Penguin Random House available everywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. It's audience. I'm sure that you would be taking back a great spark of thoughts and ideas that were shared by our guests on the topic of this session. Here, I would also like to thank our partner, LIC, Heritage Partner, for sponsoring this program. A very good evening to one and all. You can join another session and we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you for joining this session.
Thank you so much.